Hello, good evening, everyone. Let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Neeraj Verma. So, I am taking care of the innovation and operations cell ClearMeat. So, today we have a very good and diverse experts along with us in this panel discussion. So, the topic of this panel discussion is emerging technologies in cultivated meat sectors. So, let me introduce first to our panelists. So we have Dhiraj Singh from Umami BioWorks, and also we have Eugene Wang from Sophie BioNutrients. So we have Chandana from GFI India. So I would like to invite you all to give just a brief introduction about yourself and your organization you are associated with. So we would like to start with the Dhiraj. Dhiraj, over to you.
Thank you, Neeraj. Hello, everyone. My name is Dhiraj, and currently I'm head of R&D at Umami BioWorks. A little bit about Umami. At Umami, we are building technology to make cultivated seafood. We are building basically a platform technology to enable people to make cultivated seafood, which is free from, heavy metals, all the stuff which is harmful for human health. So, a little bit about me. I am trained stem cell biologist. I did my PhD in NTU, Singapore. Followed by that, I did postdoc in National University of Singapore. And before working in Umami, I was working for a similar startup, heading the cell biology division. I started my journey with Umami as lead scientist, media development. So I was taking care of culture media development, and currently I'm heading the research and development at Umami. So happy to meet all of you and looking forward to an engaging session.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dhiraj, for the introduction. Let's move to the Eugene. Eugene, please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Eugene Wang. Obviously, I'm not Sophie. Sophie is actually my daughter. She's allergic to shellfish, so has a lot to do with what Dhiraj is working on for sure. Hopefully, but it's because my daughter Sophie's allergic reaction that led me to first started a company in California back in 2010 called Sophie's Kitchen, selling and making plant-based seafood, and then back in 2017, I started my second venture in Singapore called Sophie's BioNutrients, working on precision fermentation to grow microalgae protein. Now, you may ask, what's that related to the cell-based technology? Well, quite frankly, I don't know if you folks know, microalgae is actually one of the perfect ingredients to make the bovine-free serum or growth factor and even scaffolding. And some of the projects that we've been involved in the past are related to these. So hopefully we can have a wonderful discussion later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene, for the brief introduction, and let us know about your what your company is doing and what product you are developing currently. Let's move to the Chandana. Chandana, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Neeraj. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here on this panel, and great job on to the ClearMeat team for conducting this very informative session today. So I'm Chandana from the Good Food Institute, India. So we are a global think tank working with scientists, policymakers, and the industry like ClearMeat to help diversify protein sources for a more sustainable way of making our food system circular. So I am from a science background. So I'm a bioengineer who is at GFI working with various scientists to help advance the science behind cultivated meat. So how do we crack the really hard questions? We need to work with startups, academic institutes, researchers, scientists to provide advisory and at the same time to ensure that we are able to make cultivated meat a reality for the masses. So that is primarily my background.
Yes, absolutely. We will do it. Yeah. So, without wasting too much time of our audience, I would like to jump directly to the question. So, we will start from the Dhiraj. So, Dhiraj, the first question is we would like to understand the basic concept behind the lab-grown meat. Could you please explain the process of cellular agriculture in very layman language? And please highlight the key technological hurdle that researchers are currently facing.
Great. So It's slightly tricky to explain in very layman's language, but I try my best to explain like what cultivated meat is, especially when we are trying to harmonize the nomenclature, whether we should call it lab grown, cultivated,
Yeah.
and there are many more terminology. But basically, what happens is the cultivated meat industry is basically you can divide in 4 parts.
Mhm.
I call it like the 4 puzzles you have to solve before the cultivated meat industry becomes kind of commercially available to people. The number one is cell line. So, you have to choose the cell lines. You have to develop the cell lines which are fast growing. They should proliferate faster, as well as they should differentiate into fat and muscles, because meat is essentially a combination of largely fat and muscle. Once you have the fastest growing cell line, then the next problem you have to solve is like you have to put them in a culture media. And the culture
Mhm.
media should be able to provide sufficient nutrition to the cells so that they can grow faster, proliferate, and differentiate. And at the same time, the culture media should be free from any sort of animal products, and also within the cost range so that your product eventually become commercially viable. Then comes the process, bioprocess design. The bioprocess is nothing but you take your cells and culture media, try to optimize the process, and then put in a vessel. We call it bioreactor, which can be scaled to certain degree, at a larger scale, depending on from bench scale to pilot to commercial scale. So that is the first part of the problem. So just to kind of define it, you need to have the best cell lines in the best culture media which can support their growth, and you have to develop a best process design to make it at a larger scale. So that is one part of the puzzle. The next piece is like, even though if you're culturing cells in a vessel, you are getting a kind of loosely associated biomass. It's not a full cut meat. So next part of the puzzle is like, how can we do a whole cut meat? Because if you look at some of the sashimis and all that products, even if you're looking at meat, the beef and the chickens and fish, people need to have that feed. So people are working various scaffolding technology. People are growing cells on a scaffold, but so far we couldn't. We don't have a technology or a bioreactor system where we can scale this at a larger scale.
Mhm.
So the second part of your question is, what are the challenges? So basically, what I enumerate, like what are the stages of cultivated meat production? The challenge is at every stage. The challenge is
Yeah.
developing a stable cell line, to get the culture media, to get your
Mhm.
bioprocess design right, and also
Yeah.
to get the scaffold. So these are the challenges various companies like you and me trying to solve it. So that's kind of
Yeah.
a snapshot of cultivated meat production challenges we are facing.
Yeah, so understood. So you have very well explained the process, the whole process of developing a cultivated meat is started from the cell line, either it would be the media and the scaffold, and finally leads to the bioreactor. So let's continue this discussion in terms of scalability, Dhiraj. What are the primary challenges cultivated meat companies like us are facing, and how far we reach till the date? What is the situation current?
So, there are plenty of challenges. So I can categorize our challenges. One is the technical challenges, and one is like, the commercial challenges. So
Mhm.
technical challenges is basically getting a bioreactor. Most of the companies, uh, currently they are using stir-tung bioreactor, as somebody's using airlift bioreactor, which is designed to cater to the pharma industry, right? And pharma industries, they sell a high cost, low volume product. But for us, in order to produce meat, you need to reach a certain cell density. Otherwise, the product will not be commercially viable. So there's a extremely it's extremely important to have a bioreactor which cater to the cultivated meat industry. Uh, Other than that, like when you are developing your process, right, to scale up and all, uh, consider that you are trying to optimize your bioprocess at the largest scale where there is no automation and control. It's very expensive, right? So can we develop something, a bioreactor where we have a very tightly regulated process control, so that we need not to do all the experiment. There's so many parameters that need to be optimized, right? So that's one part of the puzzle. That's a technical challenge. Of course, major cost drivers like culture media. There are many inputs in the culture media, like growth factors, serum replacement. All these are challenges which you have to face when you have to scale up. On the downstream side, when you have your cells ready, you need to have a better cell retention technology, the filtration system, etc. All these things create a very complex web of problems we have to solve part by part. So these are some of the technological challenges, including the scaffolding technology, right? There's no bioreactor designed to culture cells in such a way that you have a full cut meat. That's like very challenging at this point in time. So these are some of the technological challenges. On the commercial side, you have to deal with the regulatory. The regulatory framework in various countries are very diverse. Some of the countries don't even have a basic guidelines around or policy around the cultivated meat. So this is very challenging. On the top of that, you need to deal with all the narrative, like harmonization of terminology, the consumer acceptance, and the backlash you have to face from various sort of how to say I don't know if it's politically correct to say, but cultivated meat industry is getting a lot of backlash in recent times. So you have to deal with that. Basically, how tactically you can deal with the some of the some of the problems, the misinformation in the public, how to deal with, how to contain with that with the scientific data, right? So these are the two buckets of challenges we are facing.
So thank you, Dhiraj. So don't you think when you talk about the challenges, and don't you think media play a vital role in this case? So we have heard and we have read a lot of news article. I don't want to take name of those news agencies. When the information is very misleading, when you see a patty plate full of the streak, and you see a steak with full of mass, full of fat, and there are a lot of blood on it. So cultivated meat don't actually look like this. So this would be misleading. Don't you think media has has a responsibility to behave responsible?
I think you are right. Like, the media has a very important role to play in that. But at the same time, we, the custodians and the ecosystem partners of the cultivated meat industry has to play a significant role in that. We have to shape the narrative. We have to come together. I mean, so far, if you look, we are working in tandem. Like, somebody is trying to solve one part of the problem, the other person is trying to solve the entire set of problem. But at the same time, the entire ecosystem partner need to come together to shape your narrative and give a clear-cut view what cultivated meat is, right? And how to and we have to come up with a strategy as a whole group, how to put a science-based counter narrative to all the misinformation, which is probably a kind of breaking news kind of stuff. Like, how we need to counter. We need to preempt all these things and counter it with the scientific facts, right? So the only option we have is we have to come together. Let's bring the scientific data, preempt what misinformation can go, and try to reach out to people, which is end consumer, the ecosystem partners, the regulators, the government agencies, the people. We have to communicate to them in order to succeed. Because if we don't come together, we won't succeed, because the other side of the misinformation is quite huge. You have to contain it, and the strategy is to contain with facts and figures.
Yes, so we have to work collectively. Either it's scientists or the scientific community, the policymaker, the regulator, and investor. So we have to work collectively to achieve our goal.
Totally.
So continue with this, Chandana. I want your insight from as Dhiraj had already mentioned, different countries have different kind of policies, and there are few countries, they don't have policy at this point for cultivated meat technology or their product. So I want to your insight about this. How do you see the regulatory landscape evolving, particularly in India, to accommodate the development and commercialization of cultivated meat products?
Yeah, very important question, Neeraj. And we spoke a lot about this in the regulatory panel earlier this afternoon. But as a quick recap, I'm happy to talk about the positives that has happened in the sector, which is also making newer countries turn and notice the sector of cultivated meat. Like, for example, now we have 3 countries in the world, Singapore, US, and Israel, who have actually received regulatory approvals for sale of cultivated meat products. Now that itself is huge. And of course, there's Australia and New Zealand, the UK, Switzerland, they're all actively in the process of scrutinizing these applications for cultivated meat. And the safety assessment data for these kinds of products is out there, and there's a good guideline for other countries to follow. And of course, in India, since you asked for the Indian update, last year, the Ministry of Science and Technology, the Department of Biotechnology, set up an expert committee on smart protein, which is what in India, we don't call it alternative protein, we call it smart protein because it's the smarter terminology, I guess. So smart proteins include cultivated meat, and as a cultivated meat needs that biomanufacturing power, and we in India have it. So all these developments worldwide and in India has definitely positioned cultivated meat as a pioneering area of food technology. And this seems to have been recognized by the Indian Food Safety Authority, and that's the FSSAI. And currently, the understanding is that cultivated meat products will be regulated under the approval for non-specified foods. So that's the FSSAI's current regulations for non-specified foods. And as was very thoroughly discussed in the regulatory discussion in the afternoon, startups need further, guidance. You can't just expect them to understand what kind of safety data is required to be submitted under the non-specified food regulations. So we at GFI India, since we are active in the space to promote more pioneering innovation in the field, we actively represent to the FSSAI on the need to develop a clear and innovation-friendly regulatory framework. As Dhiraj said, there is no guidance as of now, and we want to be that representative to bring some positive developments in the field. So during these representations, we have included suggestions to put together a working group and a scientific panel that can ensure that cultivated meat gets a clear path to market, because there is so much innovation happening in India, and many countries from abroad also want to enter India for manufacturing, but there isn't yet a clear guideline. So that is where we are right now. But that said, historically, we know that establishing regulations that are rooted in rigorous scientific inquiry takes time. So this is a time-consuming process, but overall, we are enthused by the interest that the cultivated meat sector has garnered, both from the government of India and from the FSSAI. And we are encouraged. We are as sector builders, we are thrilled to see these developments, and of course we'll continue to support these initiatives by the government and make sure that cultivated meat and the FSSAI will recognize and help put together a clear pathway, like a clear guideline for the burgeoning sector. So we are doing the best we can, and I would say keep a watch for more encouraging updates coming soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chandana. So, to the best of my knowledge, cultivated meat comes under the novel food category. So, although we have some guidelines or policies for the foods, but do you think we do have the specified policy for novel foods? either when we talk about the FSCI and other regulatory body, or we need to dig more on that?
Yeah, so like we were discussing in the regulatory panel in the afternoon, I think there may need to have different ministerial representation happening here, and not just the FSSAI can help set these framework, and that is exactly what GFI does. So our role is to bring together these various bodies and make sure that we have a holistic view of all the safety data that is needed to set any framework or guidelines. So that is part of the process.
Yeah, understood. So we can't move until unless there is a complete comprehensive policy framework at the place right now. Yeah, understood.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I think that is the reason why we are pushing for something like a working group where all the scientific experts, industry experts can all represent the sector aptly and decide on the next steps.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Chandana. So I guess there would be a need of complete comprehensive policy framework, especially in India, to move forward, right? So what time do you think it will take?
Very good question. I wish I had a straight answer for you, but like I mentioned, these things take time. Historically, that's what we've learned. We are in active conversation with various experts in the government. So I really can't commit to you on a timeline. But happy to get on a call with your team. And I'm not part of the regulatory team, so we have a separate policy and regulatory team. They are the experts who can give a better answer for you on that. But happy to talk to you about that on a separate call.
Thank you so much, Anna, for such a enlightened information and knowledge. Let's move to the Eugene. Eugene, we have talked about the technology, we have talked about the policy framework and the regulatory aspect of the cultivated meat. Now, unless we match the price parity or the taste parity when we compare to the conventional or the farm meat, so we can't sell those products into the market. So I want to know from you, Eugene, can cell-based meat and seafood achieve identical flavor like real meat and seafood? And how much time, according to you, it will take to match the taste and price parity?
Neeraj, here's the misunderstanding about the technology from the public. Yeah. I think Dhiraj just pointed out very honestly, there's a lot of things that with the technology that we have on hand, it's just not possible to make it identical to the real meat and seafood yet. I'm hoping this will be resolved in my maybe grandchildren's age. I don't know how long that's gonna take, but at least
I'm more optimistic than that.
Yeah, me too. I'm sorry to interrupt you using in between, but as we are moved very far from so it's back approximate if I remember correctly, in 2013 the first patty burger has been launched, and previously in the 10 year we have reached so far and we have achieved almost 50% reduction in the cost. Am I right, Dhiraj?
Let me break it down for you.
About the components, the cell line itself, Dhiraj, and the media itself, there are a lot of innovation are happening around the globe, and people are really working very hard to achieve their goals.
Yeah. Eugene has a very unique view. Let hear him, and he has a very
sure, definitely.
Yeah. So here's the thing, Neeraj. What you mentioned about the burger patty, the meatball, the processed foods could be easy to adapt with the current cell-based technology. You hear, Dhiraj, you have to grow the muscle, grow the fat, the blood, all separately, right? And that's not gonna help to make a whole cut.
Agree.
Right. So what I'm talking about is whole cut. I'm not talking about the processed food, because people have a lot of the bad connotation on processed food nowadays. You know that. And so processed food may or may not be the solution. What I'm talking about in terms of my grandchildren's generation, and Dhiraj's more optimistic, maybe in 30, 50 years, what I'm talking about is a real identical, sensational texture, meat or seafood flavor and experience. That's possibly going to take a lot of time. Because why? Here's why. Let me break it down. I think Dhiraj just mentioned very perfectly about the texture issue. You got to combine all the fat, blood, muscles, and even the gelatin, whatever thing together nicely, perfectly. That's number one. Number two, not to mention that, what about the flavor? Other than the texture, there is flavor. Look at it from this way. The real seafood, the flavor acquires not just from the flesh itself, but also from their diet, the algae, the smelly, fishy omega-3. In the clean bioreactor that Dhiraj is using currently today, it's going to be hard to replicate that flavor. If it's possible, it's going to take some time. That's one thing. Another thing is about thinking about lactic acid. Lactic acid is so prevalent on seafood services. It provides some flavor. And what about the heavy metal? What about the microplastic? These are all contributing to some extent to the flavor of the seafood, and not to mention the blood. Yes, the blood and the fat. Different seafood have different kind of blood tissue, fat tissue. You have to grow them precisely to make that flavor, to replicate that flavor.
Yes.
So my point is that, are we really going the route to compare the cultured meat and seafood to the real meat and seafood? Or shall we go to the route to make it an independent category and give it a real personality that it doesn't have to compare to the real meat and seafood, so that the price parity will not so much be an issue, number one. And number two is that consumers, once they taste it, they wouldn't be so disappointed, because you're comparing apple to orange, and it's never gonna be the same. But when you say, this is apple, this is not orange, they get it. They're stopping the comparison, and you got a better chance to survive and thrive. That's always been my argument. I don't know if Dhiraj and Chandana agree with that.
I mean, Eugene, I kind of agree to you, as we met a couple of times and say like a more optimistic for cultivated meat technology. What I would say is you're right in saying that if we keep a notion that we are trying to mimic the actual meat, that's the difficult part, right?
Yes.
But if we say that we are creating a separate category which has so many benefits, we can enumerate it, right? Like free from all the stuff like microplastics, heavy metals, herbicide, pesticide. So those things are not there. Nutritional profile, if you look, is very similar. So we are giving you an option in a different category. So if we do that, definitely we are going to survive and we are going to create a new category. At the same time, we keep working on technology to get closer to the field of whole cut meat, right? And there is a huge market for both the things. So my approach is always right. Always is let's master the low-hanging fruits first, and then aim for the more complex problems, one step at a time. And I always take this analogy, if you talk 30 years, 40 years back, when the mobile telecom technology entered into the picture, it was super expensive, and people wouldn't have kind of imagine that it can be so cost effective that everybody can afford it, including the developing countries, the poor countries. So cultivated meat industry
same with the EV, Dhiraj.
Yeah, absolutely. So we need to crack some major bottlenecks in the industry, and I think we are good to go. But the strategy should always be what is the low-hanging fruit, so that we be in the game, and then we aim for the more complex problems. So, with Eugene, I'm pretty much aligned. I'm just optimistic that before my grandkids I would be able to kind of give it to the public, like, hey, try our cultivated seafood or cultivated meat. So that's where my optimism is slightly more than Eugene. Otherwise, I think we need to be strategic in approaching the problem of cultivated meat and how we can bring it to the public.
Now, Neeraj,
Yeah.
Dhiraj, here is the optimism. Optimism comes in is that, last year I was in Amsterdam hearing Dr. Mark Post, the guy who made the first culture bird. He said, he predicted that culture meat will be a thing in about 30 years.
Mhm.
Right? 30 years may sound long, but considering the challenges in the technology, like Dhiraj just pointed out, I think that's really fast. Now, especially, Dhiraj, I think Umami is in a very unique, very wonderful position. Why? Because surimi, the fish paste, today is being used so much, and you guys, when we hit the 30 years mark, I think a lot of infrastructure that Dhiraj mentioned, that's absent today, the big bioreactor. And I mean, big is like, using the auto industry as an example, today's bioreactor is more like Mercedes-Benz luxury sedan or Beamers. What we need is actually a Toyota or Hyundai truck, sturdy, huge, doesn't break down, and cheap. I think that's going to come on board in 20, 30 years. So when that happens, for Dhiraj technology, it will be first applied to the surimi technology, which, by the way, today we ate a lot of crab meat stick or whatever stuff in the sushi restaurant already. And so that could be the price parity show up in the commercial landscape first. And then, just like Dhiraj mentioned, slowly but surely, we're working towards the whole cut, which is very challenging. But again, Dhiraj, I am still hopeful that you guys will be successful. Because if you succeed, we also succeed as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for having that faith and positivity, Eugene. We need to maintain that. And trust me, like, the price parity on the non-structured products. One thing I forgot to mention when you reminded me, like, not only the whole cultivated meat, but there is another approach, which is the hybrid products, right? You can have certain percentage of cultivated plus some plant-based. You can shape them into various kind of products, and you can give them some flavor which is very close again to the real deal to enter the market, right? So we have to play around that, and trust me, there are plenty of cool technology being developed, and there are people who are working on it. Even the bioreactor design, I cannot disclose it, but I come across like some of really cool startups who are working on really unique bioreactor design, which gives a lot of positivity. So my optimism is not just based on my hunch, but whatever I'm seeing in the market, and the people are trying to solve the problem. Like, you see the growth factors, right? The growth factors were super costly because we are getting from pharma grade, but there are a lot of companies who are ready to give you 10,000 lesser than the price. So there is a lot of developments are happening, and in certain sectors, the advancement is faster than if you compare to any other sector, right? The dip in the price. So that gives us a lot of positivity, and I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to enter the market through some of the low-hanging fruits, and then we keep aiming for the moon.
Yes, exactly. Totally agree. So as I am aware about this Sophie BioNutrients, so Eugene have already told me that these guys are also working on the alternative to the FPS and all the things from they are targeting microalgae based growth factors. So definitely we have to work together to achieve our goals. So just moving forward, Chandana, you want to add some current advancement into the cultivated meat technology that we have missed in the conversation?
No, I think we pretty much covered it, particularly on like media cost reduction, bioprocess, bioreactor design innovation. These are all the obvious things we need in the long term to make it more affordable. But I think Dhiraj really nailed the point about hybrid products being the next 5 to 10 years of what's going to revolutionize the sector, because the interplay between the fermentation derived ingredients, the plant-based ingredients, and the cultivated cells would really be important to, even if you want to, achieve biomimicry of eating meat. I think this is the fastest way to achieve it. Blended products between plant ingredients and animal cells that are grown in bioreactors. And of course, this will obviously also help bridge to price parity. And I want to note here that the current commercially available cultivated chicken is in fact 70% animal cells and 30% plant protein. So that is how we've even gotten this far. So yeah, we are on the road to doing novel things, and that these are the emerging technologies which will help eventually get there to whole cuts.
I mean,
Yes.
just to add one more point, cultivated meat industry is done with the hype cycle. Now, whosoever is surviving in this current scenario with all the microeconomic situation, whosoever is surviving, we are now taking and answering the right kind of problem, which is very positive. Now, that hype has gone. We are looking at the real problem and trying to solve it. And various people, various groups are trying to solve it. So now, with all the resources are dried up a little bit, which makes you focus on more, the tech problem, how you're going to solve it. So approach has changed, and it will become laser focused. And once you are working on the right set of problems, you will progress faster than what we have progressed so far.
Yeah, so there are many companies who have already developed the plant-based scaffold to achieve or to make the match the price parity. So if we talk about the ClearMeat product, so we itself developed the two kind of product. One is totally cell-based and it's pure 100% cells. So we call it the chicken keema. And another product we have already developed is scaffold, plant-based scaffold along with the cells. So when this becomes the necessity to innovate into the field of scaffold and other nutrients to match the price parity, right? So yeah, definitely, and I am very optimistic, and Dhiraj is very optimistic, and we if we look for 5 year down the line, so hopefully the product will be on shelf. Yeah, what your thought on this, Dhiraj? So there are so many companies have the developed prototype. They are starting the testing events, and they are selling their product into the different restaurant and collaborating with the hotels to sell it. So what do you think? How much time it will take to come this product into the mainstream or onto the shelf of the supermarkets?
I mean, it's a very complex problem. It's not as straightforward as we think, right? Even if you are ready with your prototype or you want to put your product on the shelf, say, I think a few days back, there was a conference. There was a talk on the process development by GFI, and there was some data I have seen there, like various companies at what stage, what is their productivity, how much they can produce. So I believe keeping the cost aside, there are a lot of companies who are in a position to put some sort of product, at least the hybrid products, in the market. But the challenge is, except Singapore and a little bit in US, you cannot sell it anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the current activity is again to do some prototype, try to put and do some tasting event to make more awareness, and also in a limited version you can go to some premium restaurants and put your product there, like probably you might not make profit, but at least you can create interest, like engage some of the chefs, celebrity chefs, so that they make product and they serve it in a limited edition, right? So that create a positivity, and people know that whatever you are eating is, whatever we are talking about, cultivated meat, is actually a real thing. It's not something imaginary as science fiction. So
Exactly.
I think that part we need to cover, and as and when we are solving the problem by scale up, we can go to the market. But the challenge is, like, you have 3 countries, Singapore, US, and recently Korea came on board, but still the path is so long. So I think, again, ecosystem partners, all the cultivated meat industry, alternate protein industry should come together, talk with the policy makers, to get a crystal clear policy guidelines so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we can go to the market. So go to the market. It depends. Very complex. You can see in US and all, like certain states. I mean, Italy banned cultivated meat. Certain states are coming up with certain policies. So we need to work together to counter that, and then only we can think of going to the market.
Yeah, totally agree with your points. Yeah. So I would like to just conclude this panel discussion here. Thank you so much. Thank you all the panelists to give your precious time to me. So I would like to thank you all. Thank you, Dhiraj. Thank you, Eugene and Chandana.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj, for the
Yeah.
opportunity, and glad to meet Eugene, and happy to be in touch with Chandana as well. We'll
Yeah.
talk offline. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Really appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye. Bye.